What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more Pet Shop Boys. Indeed, I'm going to do a double reaction tonight. I'm going to do them in separate videos, but it's been like over a week, I feel like, since I've done a Pet Shop Boys, and you know, it's one of my favorite journeys we're going on, so I'm going to do two such reactions tonight. This is the first of them, and we're going back to Actually, 1987, now that we've finished going through the first disco, and the next tune on Actually is It Can Happen Here, or It Couldn't Happen Here? It couldn't happen here. So, you know, it's a phrase that I think fits in with what Izzy and a couple other people were explaining to me, and that is they often sort of have song titles that speak to common expressions, but the way in which that phrase will come into play in the story of the song is often, you know, more detailed, more nuanced, more specific. But they start with a sort of phrase that's like a commonly used turn of words, such that they can then sort of elaborate their own story, you know, beneath that. So it's an interesting way to use a phrase that everybody uses in certain contexts, but then to take it and to spin out a very specific narrative from it. So I enjoyed that approach, and this one feels in that vein. The phrase itself, I feel like when I've heard it used, it's often issued in response to some warning or some like possibility being suggested of a bad phenomenon or a bad sort of process beginning to occur in a place. So like, oh, but what if they, you know, do this or that here? It's like, ah, that couldn't happen here. You know, maybe that happens in some other places where, you know, there aren't rights or liberties or protections or, you know, safety features or whatever, but that couldn't happen here. There's too many like systems in place to make sure those kind of things don't happen. So I think for me, when I've heard the phrase, it's issued as a sort of an attempted reassurance that whatever worry, whatever sort of negative process or type of incident is being referenced will not actually occur in whatever local area we're discussing. Now, I think in a lot of cases, it's said or it's used, especially like in, you know, creative enterprises, literature, like actual, you know, narrative stories, it's used as a sort of like naive statement. The idea that like, well, they said it could never happen here, but now look, like it's happening everywhere. It's all over this place. So I do think it often occurs in the terms of like, whether it's a character sort of trying to reassure someone and ultimately being proved very, very wrong, or whether it's something that is said in retrospect, like, oh, they said it couldn't happen here, but now you see. It feels like whatever the bad thing is, that it is actually potentially likely to happen because it's the way that phrase is used as a sort of like indicator of the sort of naivete or ignorance that led to the manifestation of the thing in the first place. If you don't believe something that can happen, you're not really going to take steps to stop it or to staunch it. Therefore, you are in essence on a moving train. You think you're neutral, like, well, that's not going to happen here, and I'll, you know, I'll just keep doing my thing. Oh, it did happen, and maybe we could have done stuff to stop it. Well, I didn't realize because I was on this train that was sort of ignoring it. So, yeah, again, that's the way that I've heard the phrase used, but I have no doubt that it will be more specific and sort of, you know, in some way like represented in a way that I didn't expect. So let's find out as Luca rolls around the ground here. This is Pet Shop Boys from the album Actually, 1987, and the tune is It Couldn't Happen Here. Kind of like stripped down tribal intro. Scene setting pad. Heavy, like, impressive vocals especially. Cinematic feel too. Not just here, but through a lot of the song. Kind of leaving the way we came in. Yeah, that's a crazy tune. I feel like that's a bit different than a lot of their other songs. There have been songs that have had sort of that kind of big sweeping feel to them, but that one had a weight to it, it had a heaviness and, like I said, a sort of cinematic or theatrical quality, even though it was like a proper song. So yeah, it felt different than some of the other tunes we've gone through from them, is what I'm saying. But I enjoyed it. It was a real like, I don't know, it felt like this like inevitable march towards some understanding or some conclusion. And indeed, like there were lines about like, you know, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought it could never happen here. So it feels like there is that like, you know, there's one perception of a situation, but then over time, maybe that perception changes, or maybe the reality changes, and even if the perception is reluctant to sort of, you know, reconfigure and see it for what it is. So yeah, lyrically, I didn't catch anything, in part because it was that sort of like echoed, cavernous kind of feel, in particular to the vocals, although the whole piece felt like this big, large, kind of moving, like, powerful unit of sound, again with a lot of heft, a lot of weight. So yeah, an interesting tune from them, and again, I'll listen more and sort of, you know, try to pick up on some other lines, but do let me know if you have some insight here. Yeah, just a really interesting tune, and I'm excited to hear, you know, more of their tunes, and, you know, perhaps more variety and more of what I've already come to like, but in different configurations. So again, you know, this slipped a little bit. Been, like I said, I think more than a week since a Pet Shop Boys reaction. So trying to, like, you know, re-hone in again, because it is one of my my more enjoyed experiences going through these different deep dives. I just love their sound. It's, you know, a group that I've known about for a long time, but had an extremely limited knowledge of in terms of the actual songs. And yeah, it's just been a really fun deep dive. So looking forward to the rest of Actually. You know, lots more Pet Shop Boys after that. Once again, shout out to Seb, who has shared this material with me. And yeah, let me know what you think of this one. I will see you next time. Peace.